Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is GOP strategist Gail Gitcho. Gail, thanks so much for coming back on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
I want to talk about where we are right now in the election. We're a little over 2 months away from Election Day in November, and so much has happened really in the past month. If we can remember a little bit over a month ago, many have described it as Donald Trump's race to lose. He was surging in the polls. It was right after that presidential debate. The RNC showed a really united GOP. Now, many would say that is not the case. So, what do you think has happened in his campaign over the last few weeks?
Well, I really don't think he's in a bad position. I mean, the media would like to write President Trump off and his campaign and say that he's had a bad few weeks. But if you look at the or the competitive states, the battleground states, the races are very tight. So, it's pretty fun for the media and for pundits to talk about, oh, the national poll numbers show Kamala Harris on average 3 points ahead, but that's just not how it works. So, especially in this far out, we still have 68 days. We haven't had a face-off between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And still, in the places where it matters, these states that are going to decide the election, it's very close. I mean, it's single digits, or she's behind as where she should be. There are some states like Virginia where she's below 47, which she should be at 50 by now. She's in real trouble in some of these states, but people aren't seeing that because they've seen the enthusiasm for her campaign get a bump since she was anointed the nominee for her party. But she hasn't gotten a bump since the convention just over a week ago, where she should have gotten a big convention bump. But nationally and in the states that matter, she really hasn't seen any discernible advantage.
Arguably, the state that could potentially matter the most is Pennsylvania. That's 19 electoral votes. And an Emerson College Hill poll today shows that they are tied there right now. And as you said, I was speaking with an Emerson College senior director earlier today. And in the 7 battleground states, Harris is a little bit ahead in 3. Trump is a little bit ahead in 3. And they're tied in Pennsylvania. So it's really anyone's race. But as we know, in 2016 and 2020, Trump was undercounted in the polls. Do you think that could be the case now in 2024?
I do. I think that President Trump was further behind Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton in all of the states that mattered back then in those two contests. And I think that that's happening now. But still, it's August. And like I say, we have less than 70 days. And there's so much. I know that seems like such a short amount of time, but that's a lot of time to be had on the electoral calendar. So there's still so much that's going to happen. I mean, you mentioned Pennsylvania. It is the most expensive state to run television ads in. I mean, I can imagine that all of their inventory to run TV ads, it's all taken up because you have a competitive Senate race and then you have the battleground presidential race. But you haven't even begun to see the super PACs or the campaigns themselves start really running ads on television. People in Pennsylvania are going to start seeing back to back to back to back TV ads from Donald Trump super PAC, Kamala Harris the super PAC, and then you've got the Senate race. So it's going to be wall to wall. So that's one thing that hasn't happened yet. The second thing that hasn't happened yet is a face-off between Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. And we're expecting to see that in Pennsylvania. So those are two big things in Pennsylvania that just haven't happened yet. So I think it's going to remain tied until somebody's able to break loose with more effective messaging, either on television or in the debate.
What is the most effective messaging, would you say? Because right now, those 7 swing states, some are in the Sun Belt, some are in the Midwest, then you have Pennsylvania. How does he pull ahead over the next 2 months, especially because there is so much excitement around Kamala Harris amongst her base?
Right. There is a lot of excitement amongst her base, but really, we don't know who she is yet. And hopefully this TV interview that she's doing today and airing tonight, it's the first interview that she's done. We'll be able to, and it's not really an interview. It's more like a take-home test, and you get to bring the teacher with you because she's brought Tim Walz with her, and she's sitting down with CNN. So we might be able to see a little bit about what her real positions are. But what the Trump campaign needs to be doing between now and the election, and it's what I believe that they will be doing between now and the election, is to say what Kamala Harris is really going to do. You hear her campaign say that she's pro-energy, that she doesn't want to ban fracking. We haven't heard that from her. She says that she wants the economy to get moving again and have more people keep more of their hard-earned money. Yet the tax plan that she just unveiled has additional taxes on small businesses, farms, and ranches with the death tax increase. So we have these words that she says, but her actions are what speak the loudest. And so that's what Republicans have to do over the next 2 months, is to say, this is what Kamala Harris has done in the past. She has raised taxes. She is anti-energy production in the United States. She's pro all of these liberal policies. And guess what? She's been Joe Biden's sidekick for the last 4 years. And not only that, but she's Joe Biden, but she's worse than Joe Biden. I mean, she's less experienced and she's more liberal. So that's the message that Republicans wherever they are on the ballot, whether they're running for president or Senate or House, that's the message that all Republicans need to be driving. Because when voters who are going to decide this election, and those are undecided voters, and the slice of undecided voters are maybe this big as compared to this big when they were with Biden, they need to hear what a danger Kamala Harris is, and remind them that you weren't excited about Joe Biden. In fact, you thought that his policies were bad, and you thought that your lives weren't better off than they were before he took office. Kamala Harris is not only that bad, but she's worse. So that's the message that I think that Republicans need to drive over the last 2 months of the campaign, and that's what I think is going to be the most effective.
Do you think Donald Trump then, to your point, has been an effective messenger when it comes to that? Because over the past few days, he's been reposting QAnon-related content, a sexually explicit joke about Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. What do you think he needs to tighten up his message, maybe leave that type of rhetoric out and just focus on the economy, on immigration, on issues that matter to voters?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of this stuff is just so silly that, we should just leave it to the wayside. But like I said, the message that is going to break through and it's going to really make people understand who Kamala Harris really is what she has done and what she is going to do. She is telling you lies if you think that she's going to help the economy. Well, she was the deciding vote on the two biggest and worst spending packages that we've seen in our lifetimes. I mean, she was the deciding vote on the American Rescue Plan, and she was the deciding vote very proudly on the Inflation Reduction Act that actually increased inflation. So she's able to stand on a stage and talk about the increase of the price in meat, in eggs, in groceries, what all Americans are feeling when they go to a grocery store. Yet she's not taking any responsibility for her being the vice president of those policies. So, that's really what we should be focusing on, not the silly stuff on Twitter.
She has spoken about her economic agenda recently and said that her goal is to strengthen the middle class and she wants to build an opportunity economy. Former President Trump said that this was full communist and called her Comrade Kamala. Do you think he's done an effective job of laying out what his economy would look like, what his economic proposals are, should he win a second term?
Well, I think what President Trump has to do is say, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Because before that, when he was president, he was able to drive policies through the legislature that became law and that really impacted Americans in a very positive way. So, because when he was president, Americans felt better about the economy. They felt better about their abilities to get a job, their ability to afford groceries for their family. So the economy was so much better when he was president, and he faced a lot of headwinds in order to make it that way. So he should say, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? You know, if you are a police officer, are you better off? If you are raising a family, are you better off? If you're a member of the military, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? The answer across, if you are a senior citizen, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? The answer across the board uniformly will be no, because the only people that are better off under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are illegal immigrants. And I think that's what what we have to drive, is that when people really think about their lives under President Biden and their lives under President Trump, they're not better off than they were 4 years ago. And that's the message.
Do you think that he should just be asking repeatedly, are you better off 4 years ago, instead of, getting into these Twitter conversations, these X conversations, JD Vance rehashing his childless cat conversations? Do you think that's dragging down their message?
Well, it's just small, and the Democrats do it too. When they're talking about Project 2025, anybody that's just retweeting something or, trying to get a lot of likes on Twitter, it's just small. But you have the opportunity to take really big messages in a really big way and make a difference when you're out on the stump. And that's what I think he's going to be able to do in a much more effective way than the Democrats, because when he goes out and when he's on the stump and when he's in front of these crowds of 60 to 70,000 people who are cheering because he's speaking their language and he's talking about the difference between what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done over the last 4 years and what he was able to do, there's a huge difference, and people appreciate the many benefits that they saw under a Trump presidency.
As you mentioned earlier, Vice President Kamala Harris is sitting down for her first interview tonight since Joe Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed her. What do you think, A, a win looks like for Donald Trump tonight? And B, let's say you were advising him. What would you tell him to do tonight? What is his strategy during this interview and then after?
Well, I think the bigger strategic question it goes to the Harris campaign, but also setting that aside for a second, it's to Dana Bash, and Dana is a pro CNN reporter who I've known for many years, and I know that she will do a great job in this interview. But really, she has the responsibility to the American people to get to the bottom of some of these drastic position changes that Kamala Harris has had over the last several days. So but to answer your question, if I were advising Donald Trump, I would say just sit back and watch, because there could be something that unfolds that is just going to take care of itself for a while, or that the campaign can pounce on right away and then drive it for weeks to come. There are some mistakes that big campaigns make that you can feast on for the rest of the election. She could glitch out the same way that President Biden did in the first debate, and then you're able to drive how weak she is. She could have like a Michael Dukakis moment where people see that she's just not president. She's just not ready to be president. She's not cut out to be president. So I guess I would sit back and watch to see what happens, and then decide, okay, how does whatever happens in this interview fit in with our message and our ability to drive home the point that we're trying to make regarding the last 4 years versus our presidency. What is that we need to make sure that voters in these competitive states need to hear?
And then looking even further past tonight, in about 2 weeks, there's going to be a presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. And it's funny, before the June 27th debate, every strategist I've talked to said debates don't really matter. That clearly was the debate that changed everything in this election. So A, how important do you think that debate will be? And B, what are you specifically looking for in it?
Yeah, strategists do like to say that. It's like, oh, debates don't matter unless something really big happens, and something really big happened in that debate. And let's even back up further because the way that President Biden, he was saying for months in the springtime, let's debate, Donald, let's debate, Donald, when are you going to debate me? And Trump came out and said, I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, and didn't really have a lot of say in or didn't really care to have a lot of say in the format of this debate. The Biden campaign, on the other hand, they had to have muted mics. They did not want Trump to be talking when he shouldn't have been talking, and they didn't want to have an audience because they didn't want Trump to be playing to an audience. And those were two massive mistakes that the Biden campaign made that I think the Harris campaign now with now that the Obama team has come on to sort of advise the Harris team that they're trying to fix. Because what the mistake that the Biden campaign made was let's cut off his mic so that he can't talk when he's not supposed to, and let's not have an audience that's going to interrupt what Joe Biden is saying. Well, they just curbed Trump's worst instincts. I mean, they love to call President Trump unhinged, and the way to show him unhinged would have been to let him have a microphone on all the time and put an audience in the room because he likes to play to the audience. He feeds off of them, and that's when you get these moments where they try to say, "You see, this is not a president. He's not presidential material, etc." So what I think the Harris campaign is doing now in terms of their format fight is they're trying to make it to where the microphones are on all the time. And I think that they would really love to have an audience in the room because that's when Kamala Harris might be able to say, "Hey, I'm more presidential," but really what it's going to come down to is policy. And a lot of people are correctly saying that for the first time in a long time, this is going to be about policy and not personality because you have two wildly different administrations with wildly different policies, but we don't know where she is on these things. We don't know where she stands. Some things her campaign has flip-flopped her on, and some things she has flip-flopped herself on. But we need to hear everything from her mouth. Because what's going to happen is the President Trump is going to be able to say, see, she's Joe Biden. You guys didn't like Joe Biden. That's why we have Kamala Harris. But guess what? She's worse. So she has less experience and she's more liberal. So that's going to be the opportunity that President Trump has. I think the expectation for Kamala Harris let's get through the debate without having a moment like Joe Biden did. Because Kamala Harris, she is prone to, providing these answers that are just word salads, or sometimes she seems like a word sayer, like she's just saying a lot of words, hoping that they come into a thought, but they don't really because she's not making the point that she's trying to make. So I think she needs to survive the debate, and he needs to drive the message home that she's Joe Biden, but worse.
Last week during the DNC, I was able to talk to Democrats, strategists, and the overarching theme was that the whole event, it was high on momentum, high on vibes, and a little light on policy. But everyone was energized and the momentum was there. If we think about a month ago during the RNC, there was a similar sense of energized momentum. This is our race to lose. Do you think the Republican Party lost that energy at all because it was eclipsed by the switch up in the Democratic ticket? And if so, how do they get back on offense?
Well, I don't think it was a question of whether or not the Republicans lost momentum. It was just that for the first time in 2 years, the Democrats had some. They had some enthusiasm. So I don't know if you'll remember, you and I maybe have discussed this before, that the enthusiasm gap between Joe Biden and Donald Trump was enormous. I mean, it was 8 times more enthusiastic for Donald Trump than for Joe Biden. People just didn't want him on the ticket. So when he got off the ticket and he put a woman on, then there was like this there was a swing of enthusiasm where everybody was saying, okay, Joe Biden's gone. and we have this woman, and it's going to be great. And so they were juiced at the moment that they weren't going to have to hold their nose and support Joe Biden, but they hadn't given any thought to the fact that they had effectively coronated his running mate, his vice president, Kamala Harris. And if you'll remember back in 20, let's see, when was the last primary? When Kamala Harris ran against Joe Biden for the primary, this was when her campaign couldn't get up off the ground. Like her campaign, she had to drop out before a single vote was cast in the Iowa caucus. So this is a person who has never run a presidential campaign, that was thrust into this position by one person. The enthusiasm was there for her simply because it wasn't him.
Then what are you looking for then after this interview, after the debate, between now and November, when people are going to have tougher questions about policy, when that comes to the forefront?
Yes, and on the policy issues that they care about, because they care about issues like immigration. I mean, those were major indicators during the primary process of issues that voters care about. Immigration and crime. Crime comes along with immigration, as we've seen in numerous cases where we've seen illegal immigrants come across the border and commit these horrendous crimes. And then also these areas where Kamala Harris she's been very liberal on, and it's not where the American voters are, much less swing voters. She needs to be able to say with a straight face that she will support and empower police officers, which she hasn't done in the past. She needs to talk to suburban women about keeping our schools safe, when previously she's said that she wants to take police officers out of schools. She's got a lot of work to do in these policy areas where she has been farther to the left than I think any American realizes, and farther to the left than any swing voter would support.
Gail, I appreciate the conversation per usual. And as the race heats up even more in September and beyond, I hope you come back on and break it down with me. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, thank you, Brittany. It was great to see you.